All right. Again, my name is Imani Lateef, and I am a graphic designer. I'm also a production manager at the Toledo City Paper. I am a husband. I am a father of 7 children. That's always a cool icebreaker, yeah. The oohs and ahs, yeah. But before all that, I have always been a black nerd, or what's commonly known now as a blurred. As you can see in this picture here of me in the 80s, Halloween, of course, like everybody else, I was Luke Skywalker. My brother, who happens to be a famous Toledo artist, Yusuf Lateef, he's in the Superman costume. So if you ever wonder who's younger, it's him. Now, as you can already see in the picture, you can see the dilemma. I wanted to be Luke Skywalker, but notice immediately the vanilla mask and the little chocolate hands there. My brother had a little worse, because along with the vanilla mask, he also had the curly hair that went along with the mask. So needless to say, I was always been faced with this dilemma because I've been a nerd all my life. I've been reading comic books, every single comic book you can think of. I wasn't just reading Spider-Man and Batman and the X-Men. I was reading anything I could get my hands on. I was reading, for my comic book fans, I was reading Flaming Carrot. I was reading Boris the Bear. I was reading Yosagi Yojimbo. I was reading Sergio Aragonés. I was reading Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before they had irises. And they were still in black and white. But as an artist, I was doing that because I was always looking for inspiration in those long boxes. And I was also looking for my story reflected in these books. And I searched vigorously through books and crates trying to find my story. It wasn't until 1993 that I finally made that connection. So in 1993, 2 things happened. DC Comics introduced what was called Milestone Media, and they introduced several African American superheroes. That's the one here on the left here. Like they created characters like Hardware. But you might be familiar with the cartoon on WB called Static Shock. That was a Milestone character. They created a character who was basically the black Superman called Icon, who happened to be a black conservative. They also created a kid. They also created a kid called Static Shock, the cartoon character, but also they created a gang actually called Blood Syndicate. So basically a gang version of the X-Men, if you can imagine that. Also, Dawood Anyabwile and Guy Sims introduced Brother Man in 1993. Now, Brother Man, he didn't have too many powers. He was basically a brother who was a man. But in a minute here, I'll show you why that's important. That was important. He didn't have no powers or anything. He just punched people. But listen, in 93, now mind you, in 93, that had such a huge impact on me because I'm going to explain to you what I was going through. My son is 9 years old, and when I was his age, I had a distinct goal of one day being white. I wanted to change my name to Steve. I wanted to have shoulder-length hair that blew in the wind. And when I realized that wasn't gonna happen, I was willing to settle for being adopted by a rich white family like the Drummonds from Different Strokes, or Webster, you remember him? I was willing to settle for that. And I was a little bit obsessed. Now I'm happy to say that I'm a 43-year-old man. I'm not looking to be white anymore. Now I want to be a citizen of Wakanda. A little bit more on that in a minute. Now, to understand, you have to understand, Hip hop culture actually will help me make a connection to my culture and my heritage. Hip hop music, the history that they shared in the lyrics, the medallions with the Nefertiti on it, or with the medallions with the African symbol. It helped me to make a connection to my culture. Now, in hip hop, there's graffiti art. And I was into graffiti art, but I wasn't trying to wake up in the middle of the night, spray paint on walls. So I was still looking for comic books to make that connection. And so to illustrate the dilemma that I was in, I made a few drawings. These are common characters that you'll find in comic books in the late 80s, early 90s. Now, all the characters in the comic books, they look somewhat like this. Either they're bald with a goatee, bald with an eye missing, right? So the middle one there, that's Luke Cage, right? Or Rhodey, the War Machine and Iron Man. He looked like that in the comic books at one time. That's Nick Fury, of course, that we all see in the movies. But also there's a guy called Deathlock on Marvel. He has an eye missing. Cyborg on DC. He happens to have an eye missing and he happens to be bald, right? Oh, and it gets better. So, John Stewart, Green Lantern, the Black Green Lantern, he has a bowl cut. Now, for my brothers and sisters in the audience know what a bowl cut is. It's not faded like we like to have it faded. It's literally just hair bald. All right? Sometimes in the comic books they get a little jazzy, put a little lightning bolt in there, all right? And then what's really easy for illustrators to draw is a man with a ridiculously sized afro. But I was looking for something more than that. So when I got to Milestone and Brother Man, it was a breath of fresh air. Because in Brother Man, who happens to be the brother dressed in a suit, who's a man, right? What they did was they created characters that looked like the heroes that I found in hip hop, right? So yes, Brother Man, not only did he wear a suit, but he also had a high top fade. And he wore shell toe Adidas. Also, in issue 3 of this book, he fought a pair of villains that looked like EPMD. They wore the same bucket hats, as you'll see right there. In Milestone, they created a character called Wise Son, who wore a baseball cap with a star and a crescent on it that bore a striking resemblance to Chuck D from Public Enemy. Now that was wildly important to me because being able to see my reflection in comic books, movies, literature, like the woman mentioned earlier, mattered. And it's also why I created a website called Peep Game Comics that showcased African American comic book creators. We have over 200 books in our catalog by Black comic book creators from across the country and some from the African continent, mainly from Nigeria, Lagos. Also, I sponsored with the Toledo Public Library Glass City Black Comic Fest, which is the first Black Comic Fest here in Toledo. Last year, we're now in our 3rd year, and last year we had over 300 children and parents who came to not only learn how to tell their stories, but they got to meet Black comic book creators from across the country. Now, in closing, and you guys got the bonus short presentation. Now this is the exact opposite of the picture that we started with, right? This is my son. He's 9 years old, right? And he loves the Black Panther movie so much, he has memorized the soundtrack, the score. So we're in the car, and he knows the exact moment when the plane flies through that mythical mountain into Wakanda. He knows exactly when that song comes in. And he knows exactly the moment that it's about to happen on the score. Also, Soon after he saw the movie, he announced to the whole family that on his 13th birthday, he plans to visit Africa. Okay? His favorite president, of course, is Barack Obama. His pastime, one of his favorite pastimes, is to root for all the black families on the Family Feud. Needless to say, he has absolutely no desire to be a white person or change his name to Steve or have long flowing hair, although he has got the blonde streak going now. But he hopes to be the best little black boy he can be. And I thank comic books for that. Thank you.